Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa. I'm Clarisse Fortuné. Coming up on the program. 2 days after a wave of coordinated attacks across the country, Mali remains on edge. With insurgents still holding key towns, the junta weakened and after the killing of its defense chief and fears growing of a nationwide escalation. Fighting for water, 42 people are killed in Chad after a clash between two families over water points escalated into a cycle of reprisals. And he came, he saw, he conquered. Kenya's Sabastian Sawe smashes the 2-hour barrier at the London Marathon, a feat once thought untouchable, rewriting the limits of human endurance and making history. But first to Mali. After a wave of coordinated attacks across the country on Saturday, the country is facing one of its most serious security crises. Jihadist fighters linked to Al-Qaeda and Tuareg separatist groups launched a joint offensive targeting key cities, killing senior officials and raising questions about the strength of the military junta and the future of international involvement in the Sahel. Africa Corps, a Russian paramilitary group, confirmed that its forces had withdrawn from the northern town of Kidal. Emerald Maxwell.
These pictures are said to show Russian Africa Corps fighters withdrawing from Kidal in northeastern Mali. The Russian Ministry of Defense confirmed Monday that its fighters and Malian government forces had left the town following an attack by armed rebels and jihadists.
Wounded soldiers and heavy equipment were evacuated first. Personnel continued to carry out their assigned combat mission. The situation in Mali remains challenging.
A paramilitary organization controlled by the Russian Ministry of Defense, Africa Corps has been supporting the Malian junta since deploying to Mali in 2025. But Russia's presence in the country actually stretches back to 2021. The newly installed junta turned its back on long-standing strategic alliances with former colonial power France and sought new partnerships. And the Russian mercenary group Wagner stepped in, presenting itself as a solution to the country's security woes. Over the next few years, Mali, which has gold and other valuable minerals, drew closer to Moscow.
By choosing to strengthen cooperation with Russia, Mali also wants to show and demonstrate that we are not going to continue to justify ourselves for our choice of our partners. This is a Malian decision.
In the wake of the failed 2023 mutiny, led by former Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin, the Kremlin moved to bring Russian paramilitaries under its control. Africa Corps gradually took over operations, a vehicle for expanding Russian influence across the Sahel region, drawing heavily from former Wagner fighters. Neither mercenary group has so far risen to the challenge of securing Mali.
And although things return to a relative calm in Bamako, residents are concerned for the future.
The streets of Bamako are busy as usual, but a veil of uncertainty sits over the Malian capital after a weekend of coordinated attacks across the country perpetrated by separatist fighters and Islamist militants.
We condemn this aggression against the state. We have always condemned it and we continue to do so. We are used to it, but these latest attacks were very violent. We tell the attackers that the Malian people remain unshakable.
Schools and businesses were operating normally on Monday, and several military checkpoints which had been erected over the weekend had been removed. Most of the local press mourned the killing of the Minister of Defense, Sadio Kamara.
I really couldn't sleep last night. The fact that Sadio Kamara, as Minister of Defense, and his family have fallen victim to this kind of attack really surprises me. When I think of us civilians who rely on them, it's very hard to comprehend.
Although Bamako residents were more concerned than they were afraid, fear seems to be stronger among the Malian community abroad, like here in Senegal.
It's a difficult situation. I have family there. I am very scared because we don't know what is happening and we don't know how this will end.
We all have parents there, brothers, sisters, mothers, so we'd like the government to be vigilant, to have surveillance and be ready for anything, because we're worried.
The situation in Mali is still uncertain. Any violence could exacerbate an already vulnerable humanitarian situation.
So it was a coordinated attack between jihadist groups like Shnim and Tuareg separatists. So how unusual was this alliance? Beverly Ochieng is a senior analyst with Control Risks.
They've had a very ambiguous relationship over the years. They were the groups that did set off the insurgency in 2012. Jenim became more radicalized in 2017, pledging allegiance to Al-Qaeda. The Tuareg separatists continued to push for autonomy in the north, for more political representation after initially calling for the independence of the region. In 2023, the military government abrogated a peace agreement that had been signed between the Tuareg separatists and the government. And since then, they have been engaged in all-out confrontations with the government. This has grown over time. The FLA, as it calls itself now, has been able to, develop quite sophisticated levels of attacks using drones. And now working with Jenim means that they can face what they seem to see as a common adversary, which is the military government. If you notice the pattern this weekend, the northern regions, which has always been the Tuareg strongholds, was where the FLA Jenim coordinated. But more towards the central and the south, including Bamako and Kati, it was largely by Jenim, but they were able to lean into the FLA for capacity in the northern regions.
And actually several key cities and even areas near Bamako were targeted. We've seen videos of Tuareg rebels of the Azawad Liberation Front celebrating their claimed takeover of the Kidal region city. How unprecedented is this level of reach?
I mean, Kidal is where everything started, everything that is going back there now. Kidal had been where the insurgency in 2012 erupted and the building up of the Tuareg separatists and the armed groups consolidating the north, challenging the government's control of this region. Kidal is also where the counteroffensive was launched when the French forces came in. The military in 2023 was able to seize Kidal alongside Russian paramilitaries, which was symbolic for them because it was a way of saying that we are asserting integrity. We will not have any groups challenging our legitimacy. But the loss this weekend, the possibility that the FLA and Jenim may continue to stay in positions in the north, means that that national integrity is lost. And so the military being able to hold on to a country that is whole is essentially crumbling as we watch.
Beverly, is there a risk of this escalation spreading further across the Sahel, especially to neighboring countries like Burkina Faso and Niger?
Well, there is currently an insurgency in Burkina Faso, in Niger, courtesy of Jenim, which has a more expansionist ambition. They have been carrying out attacks in these two countries since 2015. In 2019, they started to expand into countries like Benin, Togo, at some point in Cote d'Ivoire, more recently in northwest Nigeria. So we are seeing an expansive risk, not just because of their activities in Mali, but also because of their ambitions. But this is where the contention comes. If Jenim is able to still maintain an expansive strategy while also trying to push for a consolidated change of governance in Mali, then the risk becomes elevated that Mali then poses a security threat to neighboring countries and the regional community.
A fight over water turned deadly in eastern Chad. At least 40 people were killed when a dispute between two families at a village water point spiraled into violent reprisals in Igote near the Sudanese border. Authorities say a rapid military response has restored calm as officials launch mediation efforts and a criminal investigation into the bloodshed.
Conflicts that cause a high number of deaths will no longer happen. These people have lived together for a long time and are forced to live together. And since they are forced to live together, we must create the necessary conditions for them to live in peace. We therefore ask traditional chiefs to play their full role in raising awareness.
And now to the sport exploit we keep on talking about in the world of athletics. Sabastian Sawe has become the first man to run a marathon in under 2 hours, clocking 1:59:30, beating in the process the world record by over a minute. A big surprise, but for the champion himself, who said he had been well prepared.
I'm so happy today in London, running a world record. I'm so excited. I didn't believe, but I was well prepared, and the training I've done, the results have come now.
So let's bring in our own in-house champion, James Vecina. So James, first take us through what the London Marathon held, the greatest day in the event's 45 years history.
I mean, there's no doubts about it, because this, as you can see, just there, the mention of the glass ceiling really has been that. I mean, the question has been for so long, who, when, and how is someone going to break that 2-hour barrier? It's been done before, not according to race guidelines, but this time it has been. I mean, it is still in validation process, but it has been taking place in a legal frame, and to shatter, because it truly is shatter the previous record by over a minute, absolutely huge, and now descend under that 2-minute barrier. Huge achievement there for Sabastian Sawe. As you heard there, he was ready for it. Good conditions, weather was all right in London this weekend. But it wasn't only a story just about him this weekend. In all, 3 people broke that record. Absolutely huge. It takes this effort as well on the women's side, breaking the women's record. It wasn't just about him, but he does, of course, have the hold this world record today from Kelvin Kipton from 2023 was the last record before that. So it's been 3 years since, and every time it's, you know, how far can we go? He's going to now be looking at lowering that record even more.
And James, I hear that a breakfast of bread and honey, that's all it took. Maybe I have a chance.
Well, I mean, it's probably his diet, as we know, is hugely important. Training is going to be huge as well. But there's another story behind all of this today. As I mentioned, the record was beaten by several runners there, and one of the huge parts of progression over the last year's decade, even in running, has been the shoes. We're now into the era of the super shoes, which are incredibly light shoes, which have a different structure for the runners. So these, in Sawe's side, he ran with, so these are Adidas shoes, which are only 97 grams in weight. That is nothing compared to when you think of your classic running shoes. These cost a fortune, but everything that's inside them is made to help runners to save their energy, to keep them going further, and that's what we saw happen exactly today. It's a big win, of course, because there's a huge battle behind all of this from what we see, but between brands, there's a huge battle. Nike has historically been at the forefront of racing, and it's their shoes that we've seen on many runners. So for Adidas to really take this, what is the first spot, because they can now come and say, look, the fastest runners in the world run in our shoes, which is the case. So it's a massive claim for them on this. But just to give you some ideas, that in the sole, there's always been this carbon plate which kind of springs back. Adidas have kind of changed that in it. And that has clearly brought together with its rewards in there. So it's part of sports. In every sport, technology is part of it. There are limits within that. There are conditions the shoes have to respect. But clearly it is helping runners this way. As I mentioned, been beaten 3 times this weekend. Wait to see, this was London, but wait to see in Berlin what happens, because previous to Kipton's records, the last 8 times the marathon record was broken, the last 8 times was in Berlin. Berlin has a flatter course. Wait to see how runners do over there. We might be in for another surprise.
And will he be able to wear the same shoes, do you think?
The same ones. So from what we understand, these shoes don't have a very long life into them. So it's very much, I mean, these are athlete shoes, professional shoes. You can use them yourselves, but they're really made for race day themselves. So it's going to be a matter of... I mean, maybe there's going to be some improvements on these shoes again. Again, they can be tested, changed again. There's so much technology going on behind them. But of course, they're centerpiece to all of this. So we'll see what happens in the next race. But that now it's going to be that 1 hour and 58 second mark that's going to be trying to be beaten. But incredible that we've made it under 2 minutes.
We'll all be watching. So bread, honey, and a good pair of shoes. Well, that's it for this edition of Eye on Africa. Thank you for watching.
Un amigo dijimos, hay 20 chicos que quieren venir, pero no tienen plata.
Thousands of Colombian soldiers are fighting alongside Ukrainians on the front line. tenemos vocación de servicio y aparte es una causa noble ir a defender una bandera que no sea nuestra, pero sabemos que es un pueblo. Es como si mi casa se invadiera al vecino.
Driven by unwavering commitment and the promise of a decent salary, but at the risk of never returning home.
Desde que yo vi el número más 380, yo le paso algo.
Yo me veía viejecita en las manos de mi hijo.
Watch Reporters, Ukraine, Colombians on the front line on France 24.
It's fragile, yet powerful. To earn it takes honesty, commitment, rigor, and independence. It's a cornerstone of democracy. It's vital to everyone. And without it, freedom of thought is impossible. Trust, our reason for being here. France 24, liberté, égalité, actualité.